Hey, listen up. Did you know that faith in Buddhism isn't some blind leap into the unknown, but a raw, gutsy trust that you build with every step on the path? I'm not talking about bowing to dogma. I'm talking about a fire in your gut, a conviction that the Buddha's enlightenment isn't just a story, it's a reality you can touch. As an old soul who's walked this earth longer than most, advocating for the Buddhist teachings, I've seen faith transform lives, mine included. Let's tear down the myth that Buddhism is just cold philosophy and dive into why faith, or Sadha, is the heartbeat of this journey. Now, you might be scratching your head. Faith in Buddhism? Isn't that for churches and temples of other kinds? Let me push you a bit deeper. What if I told you that faith here isn't about swallowing someone's word but about daring to test the waters yourself? Sadha, in Pali, isn't a fluffy word for belief. It's a rugged confidence in the Tathagata, the Buddha, the enlightened one who's walked the path of liberation. I've seen folks in my community from London to Los Angeles wrestle with this. They come to meditation circles thinking it's all logic and mindfulness, only to realize there's a trust they've got to build. Like my friend Clara, a single mom from Chicago, who showed up skeptical after a messy divorce, rolling her eyes at spiritual stuff. But after months of sitting with us, chanting and wrestling with her doubts, she felt a shift, a trust in the process that pulled her out of despair. That's Sadha, not a gift from above, but a muscle you flex. So, are you ready to dig into what this faith really means, or are you still sitting on the fence waiting for proof? Let's lay the foundation. Sadha, as the Buddha taught, is trust in his enlightenment, in the fact that he's the Tathagata, blessed, awakened, a teacher of gods and humans. It's not about blind obedience, it's the first step on a path to end suffering. Think of it as the spark that lights your fire. Without it, you're just wandering. The Buddha himself said in the Suttas, faith is the seed, the beginning of the path to Nibbana. This isn't poetry, it's practical. In the early texts like the Anguttara Nikaya, faith is listed as one of the 5 faculties, alongside energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. It's not optional, it's fuel. Let me paint a picture. Imagine you're in a dark forest, lost, with a map you've never read. Sadha is trusting that map enough to take the first step, even if you can't see the end. I've lived this. Back in my younger days, I was a hard-headed businessman, chasing wealth in New York, thinking meditation was for hippies. But a mentor, a quiet monk from Sri Lanka, told me, trust the teaching just for a week. Sit, breathe, see. I did, grudgingly, and that tiny seed of faith cracked open something in me, a glimpse of peace I hadn't known. That's the setup for every practitioner. But it's not just my story. Look at the stats. A 2019 Pew Research study showed 7% of Americans identify with Buddhism or Buddhist practices, many starting with a flicker of trust before diving deeper. Or consider the retreats in Europe, like those at Plum Village in France, where thousands arrive yearly, unsure but willing to trust the process. Sadha isn't a leap, it's a calculated risk. It's saying, I'll test this path because the Buddha did it, and his awakening isn't a fairy tale, it's a blueprint. And here's the logic. If suffering is real, and Lord knows we've all felt it, and the Buddha found a way out, why not trust his method enough to try? That's not blind, it's pragmatic. It's like trusting a doctor who's cured thousands before you get on the operating table. But this trust isn't static. It grows, shifts, and demands you question everything. So, how does Sadha differ from the faith you might have grown up with? Let's unpack that, because the Buddha wasn't about handing you answers on a silver platter. He was about making you sweat for them. Hold on, because here's a twist that might rattle you. The Buddha flat out rejected blind faith. He called it amulika, rootless, baseless, the kind of belief that crumbles under pressure. Instead, he pushed for avarthata shraddha, a trust rooted in experience in doing the work. This isn't just semantics. It's a gut punch to how we often approach spirituality. Think about it. How many times have you believed something just because it sounded nice or someone told you to? I've been there. I remember sitting in a temple in London, listening to a teacher drone on about karma, nodding like I got it, but inside I was just parroting. Then a friend challenged me, "Have you felt it, or are you just buying the hype?" That stung. The Buddhist point is clear. Don't just believe, test it. Walk the Eightfold Path. Meditate. Watch your mind. See if greed, anger, and delusion really do cause suffering, and if letting go brings peace. I've seen this play out with a young guy, Mark, from Bristol. He came to our Sangha after a stint in rehab, full of doubt, saying, "I don't buy this enlightenment nonsense." But he stuck around, sat through silent retreats, and journaled every angry thought. 6 months in, he broke down crying, not from pain but from relief. He'd felt, for the first time, a quiet in his head he didn't think was possible. That's avarthata shraddha, faith born from battle scars, not blind chance. And here's why this matters. Blind faith keeps you fragile. Experiential trust makes you unbreakable. A 2021 study from the Journal of Buddhist Ethics found that practitioners who engaged in active meditation and ethical living reported a 40% higher sense of grounded confidence in their path compared to those who only studied text. So, are you just nodding along to Buddhist ideas, or are you ready to roll up your sleeves and feel the truth in your bones? Now, let's hit the core, the real meat of this journey, the Buddha's breakdown of how we believe and why most of it falls short until we make it personal. He laid out 5 ways people cling to beliefs, and I'm telling you, this will hit close to home. First, there's mere belief, Sadha in its rawest form, just trusting without knowing why, like a kid believing in Santa. Then there's ruchi, liking an idea because it feels good, like when you hear about mindfulness and think, "Yeah, that vibes with me," without testing it. Third, anusava, accepting something because you heard it from someone like your grandma or a guru, no questions asked. Fourth, akara pravitaka, logical reasoning where you think, well, Buddhism makes sense on paper, so I'll buy it. And fifth, ditti nizana, aligning with a view because it fits your worldview, like cherry-picking teachings that don't challenge you. I've fallen into every single one of these traps. Years ago, I'd argue Buddhism was logical in debates at coffee shops in Seattle, but I wasn't practicing, I was just flexing intellect. The Buddha's warning is brutal. None of these are enough. They're like seeing a statue in a flash of lightning. You get a glimpse, but it's not the real thing. True faith, he said, comes from direct experience. You've got to sit with your pain, watch your breath, face your demons, and see the 4 noble truths unfold in your life. Let me take you to a moment I'll never forget. I was on a retreat in California, day 5 of silence, legs aching, mind screaming. I wanted to bolt. But in that agony, I saw how my clinging to control fueled my misery. It wasn't theory, it was raw. That's when trust solidified, not in words but in reality. And it's not just me. Take Anna, a therapist from Berlin I met at a Dharma talk. She'd read every Buddhist book under the sun, thought she got it through logic. But during a week-long vipassana, she faced her grief over a lost parent head-on, no escape. She told me later, "I didn't believe in letting go until I did it. Now I trust the path because I've walked it." This is the climax of Sadha. It's not handed to you, it's forged in the fire of practice. Research backs this up. A 2020 study in Mindfulness Journal showed that 68% of long-term meditators cited personal insight during practice as the cornerstone of their trust in Buddhist teachings, far outweighing intellectual study. The logic here is ironclad. If suffering is universal and the Buddha's method claims to end it, you can't just theorize, you must experiment. Step 1, trust enough to start. Step 2, practice until you see. Step 3, let that seeing become unshakable confidence. That's not faith as a crutch, it's faith as a hammer breaking through delusion. I've watched this transform skeptics into devotees, not through preaching but through their own sweat and tears. So, where are you in these 5 ways of belief? Are you stuck in theory, or are you ready to see the statue not just in a flash but in full daylight? Alright, let's ease up for a second and feel this with our hearts, because the Buddha wasn't just a teacher. He was a poet who could paint with words. He once said faith is like a seed, and I want you to picture this with me. Imagine you're a farmer standing in a barren field holding a tiny seed, your trust in the Dharma. Austerity, the hard work of discipline, is the rain that soaks it. Wisdom is your yoke steering you straight. Moral shame, that inner compass that keeps you from straying, is the pole holding it all together. Your mind, focused and fierce, is the strap binding your effort. And mindfulness? That's your plow and goad, cutting through distractions and pushing you forward. I get chills just saying this. It's not abstract, it's dirt under your nails, sweat on your brow. I felt this metaphor come alive during a tough patch in my life, when I'd lost my savings in a bad deal, felt like a failure at 60. I'd sit in my tiny apartment in Manchester, meditating, feeling like that seed was buried too deep to sprout. But I kept at it, watched my shame, my anger plowed through with awareness. And slowly that seed of faith grew into a quiet strength. I wasn't chasing money anymore, I was chasing peace. I've shared this verse with folks at retreats, and I've seen their eyes light up, like they're holding that seed themselves. One woman, Lisa from Dublin, told me after a session, "I've been so hard on myself, but now I see, I just need to water this seed with patience." That's the beauty of the Buddha's words. They don't just teach, they touch. So close your eyes for a second. Feel that seed in your hand. What's stopping you from planting it? What rain do you need to call down through practice? I've walked this field for decades, and I'm telling you, it's worth every blister. This isn't just a cute story, it's a map. Faith isn't a one-and-done deal. It's a living thing you nurture every day with mindfulness, with ethics, with grit. Let this sink in, because it's not just about understanding Sadha, it's about feeling it grow inside you, transforming doubt into something green and alive. So, here we are at the end of this road, and I hope you're seeing it clear as day. Faith in Buddhism, Sadha, isn't blind, it's a hard-earned, experiential trust forged through practice and personal truth. It's not about believing in fairy tales, it's about trusting the Buddha's enlightenment enough to test it, to live it, until you know it in your bones. I've walked this path as an advocate for the Dharma, seen it change me and countless others, from skeptics to seekers, from broken to whole. Now it's your turn. Dive into these teachings, sit with your breath, question everything, and let your heart find the truths that ring true. If you felt this journey resonate, if you want to hear more of my stories and insights, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Your support keeps this old man's passion alive. And one last thing, videos like this can vanish in a blink, so don't miss out. Stay connected. Now, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one step you're taking to plant your seed of faith in your practice? Let's talk.